Welcome to another episode of the Ambitious Legacy Podcast. I'm your host, Sabine the Purpose Lawyer. Thank you for listening and thank you for helping me to be on purpose. All right, so if you're new here, you might not know what we're talking about. Well, let me explain. So this podcast is all about protecting and preserving your stuff and teaching you some tips and tricks on how to put the generational into generational wealth, right? So today we're going to get into talking about trust versus trust funds. Lately, I've been getting a lot of people call me. So I'm an attorney, I run a law firm. And lately, I've been getting a lot of people call and say, I want to start a trust fund. I want to start a trust fund. And I'm like, I wonder if they know what they're talking about, right? And so sometimes they don't. They really mean that they want to start a trust. So let me tell you the difference between the two because they're often misunderstood. Nobody wants to be misunderstood. So this topic is often misunderstood, but I wanted to kind of give you guys a level set understanding because we are here to educate and pour into you. That is it, right? And get you empowered. All right, I digress. So what is a trust? So a trust is basically a document in real life, right? It's a piece of paper or several pieces of paper. But it is really an arrangement where a person, the creator of the trust, they have an agreement with a trustee, the person who's going to run and manage the trust. Could be the same person, right? You're creating something that you're creating an agreement with yourself to be in this position as a trustee, but let's pretend, right, for sake of clarity, that we're talking about different people. So you have the creator of the trust and you have the trustee who are making an agreement where the creator is saying, I'm creating this document and I'm going to put these assets into this thing, this trust, right? And you as a trustee is going to be responsible to manage and run it. And you're doing this for the benefit of a third party who is the beneficiary. The beneficiaries are usually like children, family member, maybe business partners, things of that nature, right? So you're creating this agreement to be in this relationship where the creator creates this. They're putting these assets in. The trustee is managing it for the benefit of the beneficiary. So it's an entanglement of sorts, right? They're getting into this thing that they're doing. And the trustee basically will have the responsibility to manage the trust, make sure that the trust funds, I kind of spilled the beans a little bit. Make sure that the trust is productive, that the assets in the trust are, growing. They're continuing to essentially create value, right, for the beneficiaries, right? And so a trust fund is actually some sort of an account or a way that these funds like investment accounts, business accounts, cash, whatever it is, bonds, some way that these are held, and they're held in like a pool, right? And they are also to be productive and to be to grow and to provide income, right? Now, what's interesting is that they're not one and the same. Trust funds are there to provide liquidity to an estate. They're there to provide wealth for the next generation and maybe the next generation after that, right? Or to provide cash to keep the assets up and running, like say if it was real estate or something of that sort. Whereas a trust, that trust is going to hold like your art and could be also your real estate. It could be your just, any of your personal affairs, your collectibles, your antiques, what have you. Now, here's where it gets a little bit confusing. While all trusts must have funds, not all trust funds are trusts. What are you talking about, Sabine? All right, let me stop playing around. So a trust can hold a trust fund. That's the long and short of it. A trust fund is really like the trust account or the trust accounts, right? A trust fund is what's inside of the trust. The trust is the container, the wrapper, right? It lives on a piece of paper, but it is the world in which a trust fund exists. So again, the trust fund is going to be the cash accounts, the investment accounts that are actually being invested and growing and producing income. Now, a real estate asset won't be in a trust fund really. It's more so held in the trust, right? And so it's sort of like a technicality there or a play on words. You wouldn't really be terribly wrong if you said trust fund, where you're really referring to creating an actual trust document, or you're creating this world where all of your stuff is going to be put in so that the instructions could be followed and that your loved ones could eventually benefit from it, right? And so that a trust could hold a wide variety of assets, not just financial assets, but like I said, real estate, art, antiques, your personal affairs, your watch collection, your sneaker collection, whatever it is, your bonds, all that stuff, a trust can hold. But the fund part of the trust is the part that is going to be invested essentially, that's going to be in some sort of an account that's going to be produced. Now, here's something that's interesting. There are funds called donor funds, right? I believe that's the word for it. But what these funds are is these institutions, like your JP Morgans and your Morgan Stanleys and your Fidelities and things like that. They have these things called donor funds that function as a way that individuals can give money to this fund and get a tax break, as if they're giving money to a nonprofit, and they can have their funds, given out to different nonprofits for different causes and things of that nature. So that's also a kind of fund. There are also something called mutual funds, which is like a basket of, stocks and different investments that people can invest into. So that's when you hear the word fund, that's what it is. But there's also funding that happens when you have a trust. So what is funding your trust? So funding your trust is once the document itself is created. So, you go to a law firm to create this for you. I would not suggest creating a trust on your own and putting your personal giving the ownership of your assets to something that you created if you don't know what you're doing. So I would hire a professional to do it. Once the professional creates the documents, right, the papers that they give you that say, this is your trust, those documents, once those are created, now this world has been created, this world of your trust, right? You can't see it, but it exists. And so this world of your trust is now created, and now you can transfer what you own to this trust. You can put it in your trust bucket. And so that requires a process of changing the ownership of your real estate, your bank accounts, your life insurance, your any other sort of things of value that you have that you want your trust to control and that you want your trust to direct to your loved ones. This process is called funding the trust. Okay. So that's it. That's all. So we talked about what the trust is. We talked about child. We talked about what the trust fund is. And then we now talked about what trust funding is. So those are three different things. I hope it was clear for you. I try to be as slow and clear as possible. Now, if you guys have more questions about this, I shouldn't say just guys, right? I should say folks. If you folks, so we could be inclusive, if you folks have any questions about this, if you need clarity, you want understanding on this trust world, this funding world, this, what does it all mean? How does it pertain to me for my needs, right? So if you have questions about that, please reach out to the Ambitious Legacy Firm. That's the firm that I run. We are an estate planning firm. Like I said, we help put the intergenerational wealth, all these things essentially that help you protect and preserve your assets. We're all about it. So please reach out. The information is in the show notes. Now, I also wrote a book called You're Richer Than You Think. And You're Richer Than You Think breaks down all of these different concepts of what a trust is, what a will is, what estate planning is, what's funding, all that good stuff is broken down in this book. And it helps you to get, a base level understanding of what it is and how it applies to you in your life and how you can help others. You could be the catalyst in your network, in your family, to make sure that everyone is protecting and preserving what they have, especially if they want to pass it on to the next generation, right? So pick up a copy of You're Richer Than You Think. That's also in the show notes. Thank you so much for being here. Please hit the like button if you like this. Please subscribe if you want to subscribe to this, right? And come back next week for another episode of the Ambitious Legacy Podcast. I will see you next time.